Hey guys, welcome. Sorry for the little bit of a delay there. That was a mistake on my part, but welcome to the Armchair Dragoons Digital Convention interview with DGS Games. I'm Mo from Mo's Game Table, and joining me today are my guests, John Cleves and Matthew Gooch from DGS Games. They're going to talk to us all about the world that they've got created there. I think it's the world of Phelan is how you pronounce it.
Yep.
All right, good. I wanted to make sure I didn't screw that up. Plus, we have the awesome miniatures that you got with Freeblades that are just really gorgeous. You can check them out on the site if you're not familiar with them already, but the poses, everything real dramatic, and they look like they'll paint up really, really nice. But welcome to the show, guys, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having us. Good to be here.
So let's talk about the game itself. For people who are unfamiliar with it, give us a thumbnail sketch on what the world is about and what the miniatures are like, the whole 9 yards. Give us the big, long, extended sales pitch, not the 30-second elevator pitch.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, it's me, huh? Okay.
Hey, you've got the best sales pitch, sir.
I guess. I don't know. So, for starters, the games that we currently make are all set in our world of Phelan, as you mentioned. A fantasy world of our own creation. Less super fantastical, more not grounded in reality, certainly, because it's not reality, it's fantasy, but a place where we don't define good and evil by there's some super evil dark lord reigning over the land, but by the way people interact with each other. And so maybe monsters are a little rarer than in some other settings, but we try to do that so that they're a little more dramatic and special when they do show up. And we've also found, I think we know, that people can be monster enough all by themselves. So it's the interaction of the different factions that plays a big role in how we represent that. So the world of Phelan can be found. We host it on a platform called World Anvil. The simplest way to get to everything about us and what we do is just to go to our website, dgsgames.com. And that will also explain to you how to interact with the world itself. And then, of course, the whole point of that is to give the background for the storytelling we want to do in our games. And the premier game of our game line is Freeblades, a fantasy miniatures game, skirmish game. Each individual model is a person or a thing. And not unit-based or army or ranked up or anything like that. So individual model skirmish. Low model count Freeblades. A starter set is only 6 models. They get as big as maybe 12, 15, 18 models. So you don't have a huge investment in terms of playing that particular game because the most you can ever have is 18 on a side in a skirmish game. And generally somewhere in the 12 to 15 range is about where most people are playing today, I think. And Matt could, of course, correct all of this when I get it wrong. But the idea is, right, so far so good. The idea is that a Freeblade is an adventurer for hire. And that person is part of a group of adventurers that are working for a patron. So while you interact on the table with a little bit of a battle sense, really these groups are more like role-playing parties and military units. So you'll have a group that's a leader, and there'll be a caster, some number of heroes, and some number of followers, or minions, or models that have kind of a lower capability in terms of the game and the game mechanics, but are more numerous because maybe they cost less. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we miss them less when they're gone. I don't know. So and there's a number of countries. In the world, there's also actors that aren't parts of countries. There's organizations and rogue bands for running across the countryside, or pirate fleets, or what have you. And so players tend to identify with one or more factions that they're interested in the story. They're interested in following the characters that are in that faction, and often it also suits their play style on the table when they're playing the game. Okay. The idea behind the world is to give a background to the story and also to link different games together. Freeblades is the first game out of the chute with us, the Fantasy Skirmish game, and we're going to link that to our role-playing game and our battle game, so that you can move your characters in between them as seamlessly as possible. So you'll be able to play a campaign with your free band, your adventuring party in the skirmish game, maybe choose one character that you identify with that you take into your role-playing game, skill them up, bring them back into the skirmish game, take them out, have them lead a company in your battle game, and move back and forth. So you can.
I got a quick question for you here. We got Zeblik saying he's on the website right now, and what character would fit his contact lenses? Would you think? If you look at his image right there, he's got the really cool contact lenses where he's got those freaky vampire eyes. So I was wondering what character would he be good for? Would be good for that.
We're definitely Demons of Carolon with that one.
I'm sorry, I can't see either one of you or anything, so I'm not sure which one.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, Matthew got it. He gave the suggestion. So say that again, so that way Zeblik can follow that up on the site.
Sure.
Yeah, Zeblik. I think maybe you'd want to check out the Demons of Carolon. They might be right up your alley, sir.
Outstanding. Sorry to interrupt you, John. I just wanted to say that. I thought that was kind of cool.
And now, Mo, I can't see either one of you two. Either. I'm not sure if I'm.
What's a blessing?
Okay, well, each person's going to have to decide that for themselves. So, anyway, so the idea is that you are playing in a fantasy world. You are able to participate in that fantasy world a number of different ways. You can choose the way that you want to, and also through the way we run the world on World Anvil, you can be a Patreon subscriber and influence the world. You can have a say in how things are designed in the games. You can have a location that's yours in the world. You can have a character that's yours in the world. And so one of the core elements of who we are is our players' involvement in the world itself, and not just, sort of a casual relationship, something where they're intimately involved in the decisions we make, the way the story is told, what direction we take the story, where they live in that world, where they run their campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
What campaign we write next, is all based on customer input directly from the people that are playing the games.
So they get a truly vested interest then in the world itself.
Yeah, it depends now. To be full disclosure, the more the higher your subscriber level, the more things you get to involve yourself with directly.
Sure.
And let me interject on that just a second too, because I think it's a really cool thing. And John and I have talked about this before. I can't stress enough just our interaction with our players and how important that is to us. And just to give an example of that, yesterday I was doing some writing on some of the background, and I was working on this problem. And we have the Chakram, which is our lizard people, kind of live down on these islands. And one of our world builder subscribers, which is the highest level, he's very invested in that particular faction. And so I was trying to figure some things out, and I had a couple of questions about it, and I was running them through my head, and I just went ahead and texted him. I mean, he's our world builder for the Chakram. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get his opinion on it. And he had a great opinion, and it's written in now, And so that's the kind of interaction, the kind of involvement that our subscribers on Patreon can get into.
Well, it's great because when you're doing something like that, you're tapping into the vast array of talent that's out there. And a lot of people that are into these games, they don't have their own game company. They're not a professional game designer or developer or something like that, but they have fantastic, rich imaginations, and they can create these stories that can help build out and flesh out these worlds this world that you guys have created.
Yeah, that is so very true. Both the Fail on Elite level and the World Builder level get to have an NPC that's them in the world somewhere. It's part of woven into the story, and it seems like every single time we add a person, they come in with their ideas, and we work with them to put their character in the story. It's just amazing the kind of stuff that they bring to the table. And, so no one's doing this alone. It's not a one or two man show. It's a community effort. And I think it also, you'll also see the interactions where one player comes in and they've got this great idea, and they want to have this character that's got, a story in their background and does these things and fits into the story this way. And that energizes another player to say, oh, that gets me thinking about what I want to do with mine. I want to do this, And so it's also like a feedback loop of creativity where, each person's kind of drawing more and more inspiration from the people around them, and we're making a much better place than we would have done if it was just Matt and I,
So true. So true.
No question.
Now, one of the things that I'm big on, and I know a lot of people are, you guys as well. Some people just like to play because all the mechanics are cool, or the miniatures are cool, or whatever. But a big thing for me that draws me in is obviously the theme, what it is. Like, I love mechs and things like that. So, okay, I'll see a mech game and I'm like, yeah, that's cool miniatures, but I'm not really drawn in because I'm not getting into the why we fight like you get with BattleTech. BattleTech is one of the richest universes there is. And you can really attach yourselves because of the fiction and stuff like that's out there, as well as the source books. Now, do you guys have fiction novels or novellas, and do you have source books as well to support the world itself and all the factions?
So right now, what we're doing is we have most of our fiction up on World Ample, and most of it is available for the world to see. And they range from short stories to something approaching the size of a novella. Now, John has been working on a couple of longer stories for some time that we're releasing slowly because they have to do with events that are just about to kick off in our world. In our world, it is 10:08, and we're kind of stopped up, right? So when we release that floodgate and time opens up, these events that he's writing about, these books about, are going to happen. So the books are kind of setting up right now what's about to kick off, and then they will explain what's going on going forward. So we continue to have more and more fiction. Each month we release a new piece of fiction through our World Anvil. We've got several that are up there, and you can find a ton of our stuff that's out there on our Facebook page and places like that as well.
Yeah, what I want to just add to everything Matt said, plus the World Amble is a World Builders interactive database, and so we're trying to push the envelope a little bit in terms of the way we present this, rather than print a paper novella. And we know that some people still like those and want to read a paper book, and we're cool with that. But we can't just give it, the players the infinite number of ways that, maybe we could in a perfect world where, everything was inexpensive and, all that. This way, though, if we release a story, not only, will you automatically get it at your subscriber level based on who you are, but we can also design it such that the characters in it, the background locations, all the different organizations of religions, those kinds of references are all hyperlinked parts of the story. So when you're in it, you can also go connect to, imagery, people, stat lines, location maps, directly from the platform that you're working on without having to, purchase a number of individual source books or things that aren't physically connected to each other. That way you can explore this in the direction that you want to take it. Because like you said, I might be interested in the people. Another person might I love maps. I want to see how these things look as, places in geography, or I want to know how this connects to my game because I'm writing a story in this world for my campaign, and I don't want to be told what the story is. I want to make it up myself, but I need the raw material to make it. And so we have fiction. The way we express it might be a little bit different than people are normally used to.
Well, it's easier to consume and it's a lot cheaper.
True. Yeah. We don't want to overcharge our players for the things that we provide them. We must charge something or we can't be a business.
Sure.
But we don't want to overdo it, and we want to simplify it. You want to sign up for, this amount of money a month as a Patreon subscriber, then this is, and what you're going to get, and you know that every month more is going to be added to your level and the list of things that we told you were going to get. So your expectations are high, and our rules are done that way also, so that we can get you. And we're all gamers. All the members of DGS are gamers, originally, and there's things that we like and don't like as gamers ourselves. And one of them is I don't want to have a rule book, for my game, and then also have to have the FAQ, supplement X, rules expansion Y, and have them be hard to get to. So we will expand the rules, but when we do, you'll get the link inside the rule. It takes you to this new rule. It'll be highlighted as something that wasn't there in the last version. So you'll know instantly that that's something new you got to focus on. we'll talk about it in our our media splash, etc. So it's a little bit different way of interacting than maybe useful. We're trying to carry it 21st century style in the way people do things today.
Yeah. Well, John Zeblik just posted up a comment. I'm just sharing it. That's, I think, what Matt's laughing at is he said, thanks for introduction to this. I will be looking into it more, but his microwave died. So he has to go shopping. He's going to watch it later. So he's asking that I provide links in the description, which I will do, Zeblik. I will make sure to put all those in there. So glad that you got an introduction to that. And maybe you get another guy that's going to come in there and give you a lot of new stuff into the world and hopefully add some creativity to the overall story.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I see that Bennett Brandt there also asked, will there be character specific sculpts to go with the characters in the stories? And that's a really great question. And Bennett Brandt, yes, in a lot of cases, most of the characters in our stories have sculpts already. We've tried to be very careful about that so that you read something in the fiction and are like, ooh, that's really cool. I want to go get that. And it's available. But right now, with the expansion of on Patreon, we have some NPCs that are coming into the stories and some characters that don't have sculpts yet, but it is our plan, our goal to eventually offer those when we're able to, yes.
Well, we've had to, like a lot of people, we've had to, very much streamline, our operations during COVID. We're a tabletop miniatures company. In addition to there's a bunch of other things we do, but that's the premier way that we operate as a business, and that is generally done with people buying physical models to play a game across from each other on a tabletop. You can play Freeblades, for example, on Tabletop Simulator, but that's our players do that, and we encourage them to do so if it works for them. That's not the business Matt and I are in. We want to be out there with our players, interacting, live at conventions and game days and those sorts of things. And of course, that's all mostly turned off right now. So what Mackey's referring to is when we have all this sort of head of steam built up, that when a lot of the COVID lockdowns and other measures that are in place are finally start to relax, we're going to become rolling out the gate with a whole bunch of things that our players are going to be able to enjoy. We also, the Phelan Elite, that level of Patreon subscriber, joins us once a month in the Phelan Elite Design Council, and they choose the subjects, and they tell us what they want, in terms of, okay, so we got a number of different ways we could go with our next set of models. What do you want? Why do you want it? If we have a bunch of good opinions, we'll have a poll, and those folks will sort out, kind of rank order what it is that they want next. And we are absolutely driven by player feedback in terms of what they want to see and what directions we want to go. And so if there's a character out there and we don't make a model for it, and it's important to them, they're going to tell us, and we're going to make it.
Now, from a creative standpoint, and designing the world, that does sound fantastic, because you're, like we were saying before, you have that giant talent pool that you can dip into and pull from. What are the challenges also that you face with that? Not just are you getting a lot of great content, but sometimes you make it too much great content that you can't use all at one time. And the other time is, how many times do you run into a thing where the gamers are saying, we want to go this way, and you're like, well, we really kind of want to go this way because we have plans already in motion. So you have to kind of get them back on the path you want to go down. Yeah,
I'm going to start with that one.
Sure.
Because it's as you and Matt knows, this is something that we, are very attuned to. First of all, the good news is, so far it has amazingly not been a challenge. And I think part of that is because the players, if you just, if you think about it, step back and think about it for a second, the players are into Phelan because they like what Phelan is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not necessarily going to come in and be disruptive out of the gate because they're already on board with the general direction they see. That's the first thing. The second thing is, we have a general course that we're on, certain things that we know are going to happen in the world, and we're moving down that path, but not 100%, not even close to 100%. And so there's plenty of wiggle room and room to be creative, and more so the more micro the level gets. So if you are telling a story about a minor noble at a manor house in the Kingdom of Herodel, you've got all kinds of room to operate. If you're telling a story about what the king is doing during this war, it gets more constrictive because there's certain things that we know we kind of generally have to have happen. And so, but the players are generally interested in the where their character, their favorite faction, their thing that they like about the world fits in the greater scheme, and are not bucking the greater scheme, because that's what attracted them to it in the first place. So it's actually been relatively easy. I don't think we've really had anybody just throw something in there and said, this is what we want to have happen. It's completely, unmanageable in terms of the general direction of where we're going to want to go. And I think that's because the interactions that they see kind of building and happening are things that, they want to have happen, because that's what interested them in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's been awesome. That will be, we don't want to tell anybody no, if we don't have to. And we will work with them just as long and hard as it takes to make their ideas fit as best they can. If somebody says, hey, I want country X to invade country Y and wipe it off the face of the planet. Well, that's not going to be great, because we got a whole bunch of fans in country, So, but we haven't had that. Win a battle here, sure. The second half, I know Matt, I'm sure Matt wants to add some on, but the second half of that is, we don't color in any spaces before we have to.
That's right.
So there's huge tracks of the map and the plan and the storyline that we have general occurrence, but we don't have completely filled in spaces. And until it's absolutely necessary, we don't make a final decision about which way this is going to zig or zag, because we want to leave room for those people to join us and bring their creativity to that part of the story. So there's plenty of room. In fact, we had one, and I'm thinking of Jeff, Matt. We had one of our world builders want to do something. We said that fits great, but it fits great in the future. So you're not going to see this thing happening immediately in real time in the storyline. He was like, I'm totally cool with that. I'm going to be the one out on the other end, I'm clearly going to live that long, right? Because I have to be there when it happens. So he was all for it. He totally understood that if we brought that in right now, we'd be jumping the gun on a big story element. And he's completely cool with, investing a little bit in the future and setting something up that's going to be like a long-term story element.
Yeah, I think the pull, the allure of Phelan for a lot of us, and it was for me when I first came in, was that you can really write yourself into the details, right? You can see your characters operating in the details, not the larger sense of things really doesn't get touched, because we're not playing at a meta level, right? We don't have armies led by the king marching across the battlefield yet. We have
we
have a small band of 12 to 15 people led by somebody that the king may or may not have ever heard of before, struggling life and death, at this one location. And so a lot of the players get really into those details rather than into the meta. So they're not looking to change the meta. They really want to get in there, and they want their own manor house. They want their own shipping company. They want their own, the small time characters that really drive the stories. So we are kind of a narrative driven company for the most part, as far as our characters are concerned. We're telling stories, and our players really get into those stories.
Yeah, and it sounds like when you do that, the players themselves will then have an even greater sense of ownership. Aside from the creative process part that they can be involved in, they can they feel more invested in the overall story, because they're adding that creativity. Other gamers are adding that creativity. You guys are adding that creativity, building this entire just big narrative, and it really does drive you in, suck you into the story, I think, a lot more.
Right. One way I was talking to a player the other day. One way we try to, or I use as an example to explain it, is if you think about the old HBO series Rome, the characters in Rome are the kind of player, NPC level person. Varenus, is the kind of character. The backdrop is, Caesar's going to get stabbed, in a few months. So that's the big meta story, and we kind of know generally that that's happening. But where does this character fit? When do they interact with some of these bigger players in terms of, captains and kings, and archmages? They'll run into them, and then they're not run into them. Then run into them again in the storyline. But where do they play, and where can we take them where they're actually there at the big event, and their action may have influenced it or been part of it in some way, while the story streams along at the meta level, which we have to kind of make sure that we're monitoring to get all the other threads woven into the whole story, because other factions are in play and other organizations and other provinces and military units, what have you, at that level. But we can bring that character into a scene that involves some major story elements and have them influence it there too. But that's kind of the level that these folks are at, in terms of the characters that they're developing, and they can influence the overall stream without diverting it off a cliff into the ocean. So
we have a question from Brant. He's saying, for the future of Phalon, what ratio are you guys targeting these days between, 1, coloring in the existing lines, filling in the known blanks, and 2, expanding the map and opening up new horizons?
Well,
that's a very interesting question. Right now, we're kind of leaving it up to our Phalon Elite Design Council, quite honestly.
Right. What Matt's referring to is, as an example, we were developing a campaign that you could play either using Freeblades, the skirmish game, or Brightsword, the role-playing game, about one a month. A really challenging schedule to meet for the size team that we are. And we went to the players and said, look, we think this is what you wanted, but we want to make absolutely sure, because this pace is keeping us from doing other things with this time. You tell us what you'd like to see. And with the answer back, at least for now, is there are enough campaigns built up in the library in World Anvil. We'd rather have you guys tell us more detail about some of the key locations of Phalon. Give us maps, give us NPCs, give us the buildings and organizations that are in these places, the political relationships, adventure hooks, probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then we'll write our own adventure. We need the raw material more than we need you guys to show us the campaign. So slow that pace down and give us more locations. You
give them the raw materials, they'll create the recipe.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was the answer we got, and that's what we're doing. We've shifted effort from, and we do have a reasonable number of campaigns in the library, and we have a couple we're going to do anyway, but we're not going to do them the same number, the same pace, because what we're going to do is take that design time and work on giving detailed locations. And there is a plan to expand the map beyond the current parts that are visible on the giant map on World Anvil in terms of the northern continent and half the southern continent. We are going to go all directions.
Matt, I think you wanted to add in some stuff here as well with that.
No, I honestly, John did a great job with that. The guys that are on our Phalon Elite Design Council are fantastic, and they have told us very clearly, hey, we want details on locations. So we're pushing a city right now in honestly a faction that we've really not done a whole lot of work into now. So this next month's city location reveal is going to not just reveal the geography of the city, but it's going to start to dig into some of the geopolitical stuff that this faction is involved in, and we haven't really explored that yet. So it's really exciting, and that's one of the reasons that our design council voted to go that direction. But they could just as easily, Brant, tell us that they want to see something that's off the map now, and if that's the case, then because we're being driven, taking suggestions from that Phalon Elite Design Council, we'll go that direction.
Well, I got a quick question here before we got a couple more from the audience. I just wanted to ask you now, this is a war game convention primarily. So as a war gamer, looking at Freeblades, a lot of wargamers play their games solitaire. How is this game as far as solitaire friendly? Is it something you can play by yourself, or is it something that does really require other players?
I'll take that one, Matt, if you're okay.
Sure, absolutely.
So in the core Freeblades rules, there are the scenarios are all such that you're not really executing a military operation. That will be in the battle game. You are participating in an adventure. You have some task you're set by your patron, so it is more like a role-playing task. Although when you play one-on-one, you're two free bands, and you're both competing over that thing. Sometimes there will be one or more creatures on the table that are not part of either of your groups and operate according to some NPC rules. And recently we took those NPC like an AI, in terms of how they act. And we expanded that and applied it to an entire enemy free band. So you can play any of these scenarios, make a second free band for your opponent. And of course you're playing solitaire, so you're going to be moving those two, but you're playing the primary free band. The other one's on the AI set, and publish that as a free download to the players so that they could play it solitaire.
Outstanding. That's huge.
Yeah, entirely. And that's like, I know I don't want to oversell it, but I also don't want to undersell it. That's because the players asked for it. They said, "Look, we'd like to, especially under COVID, where
a lot of people can't get out and game with their friends." Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't. And just to be I have to always be the one that's the hard-nosed businessman here, because we do have to stay in business, and we want to stay in business. We don't derive any money from, for example, two players playing Tabletop Simulator, playing Freeblades using Tabletop Simulator. We don't derive any extra money from developing the rules to allow somebody to play solitaire and give them away for free. That's not who we are, right? Who we are is you like us and you are part of the community because we do those things, and the money we make is from other parts of your experience from playing with us. So that was very easy development. We didn't have to take away from something else major to do it. We already had the core of it because of the sorcerer scenario, where the third party bad guy is a big magic user, and from some other things we had done, we could very, very easily give guidance on how to move the other free band. Also, we made the original decision when we made Freeblades that one of the number one drivers was going to be speed of play, and that dictated us certain parts of the mechanics that they are the way they are because we were vicious about how quickly we wanted a game to progress and to conclude. And so that led us to a you-go-I-go system. So it's not an interactive initiative system where you draw cards or dice out of a bag, those sorts of things. But the second player, the one who's not moving, has a bunch of reactions they can make. So they're not just standing there and taking whatever charges the first player does and have no opportunity to. That's how we handle that. It's quicker. You can do crazy things with alternating initiative. Those are great designs. I play them. Matt plays them. But ours, we wanted the speed was more important. The advantage is that you-go-I-go system made a solitaire design super easy to do. Yeah. Easier than it would have been if we had a different structure for Freeblades. So we do think it works pretty well for those people that want to experience it that way or need to, and especially in the COVID situation where they can't get out with their friends and play.
And Brant had another question. He says, "Are you guys at all familiar with the icons in the 13th Age RPG and their impact on even the low-level characters? Sounds very similar to the story elements that John was just describing. This was a couple of minutes ago."
I didn't get the reference. Familiar with
the icons in the air quotes icons in the 13th Age RPG and their impact on the on even the low-level characters. So you are familiar with it?
I am not, but I will be shortly. Hey, look, if a potential player, as a game designer, any game designer that tells you they're not inspired by other people's designs is a liar, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't steal from it. You take that idea and you run with it. And you do other things with it.
You never steal. You borrow.
You borrow. We always say inspired by in DGS, but borrow is also good. So you want to do it so that you have, and another kind of guiding principle we have is familiar but unique.
Sure.
You want it to be somewhere a person can relate to it, even if you're doing it putting your particular spin on it.
Yep.
So if there's something about, is it 13th age? Am I getting that right?
Yes.
That a person likes. I'm familiar with a lot of role playing games. I'm probably unfamiliar with just as many. There's a lot of them out there, and they're all good. But if a player says, "Hey, have you looked at?" and if I haven't, we'll go do it. We'll go look at it, because there might be something about that we can draw inspiration from to, improve what we're doing, or take it to the next level. So we're advancing the state of the art of that part of the game design, and somebody else takes from us. I read the patron rule the other day in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It was a D&D class. I was like, "Woo!" I'm pretty flattered by that. So there's things where people are inspired by ideas, and if one of our players or potential players says, "Take a look at this," we're going to take a look at it.
That's right.
Because it's cool to them. That's good enough for us to be checking it out and seeing what kinds of things are in there that might be something we can be inspired by using our own story.
Well, I got one here.
In our way, we wouldn't ever directly copy it, but we could certainly be sensitive to it and make it work for us the way our world works.
Sure. I got a question here. I'm gonna hand this one over to Matt. It says Command Tent was asking, curious if you could speak to what's the size of the player base versus the size of the base who are invested in the world building.
Oh, that's 100%. So the folks that are doing the world building on the Patreon, they're 100% players, and that's where we met them first. I don't know of a single person that's invested in our world building from our Patreon right now that is not actually playing the game.
So everybody is totally invested because they are playing the game. It's not like somebody is coming in being creative, and saying, "Hey, I kind of like these miniatures, but I'm not as much into the gaming because for whatever reason, maybe they're not a big gamer or they don't have people around them to game with, but they like the world and they want to help develop it." So you don't have any of those at all.
Not that I'm aware of. Not in the Phelan Elite or the World Builder. Now we may have a couple in the Lore Master. Is that right, John? Because I think who you're thinking of.
Yeah, I think there might. So there's so these terms we're just throwing them out there. I'll just give the quick summary. Everybody who gets a Freeblades Living Rulebook is at the Freeblades LRB level of World Anvil. So you get all this stuff. It's Freeblade specific, and that's free. You just have to have a rulebook to do it. You get a link. So beyond that, there's 4 levels. Blade Sworn is the base level. That's so that you can be a character in the role-playing game and get all the assets you need to be a character. The Lore Master level is targeted at game masters, those who are going to run games and need the next level of information. Then the Elite are those who want to participate to a certain level, and the World Builders are a even crazier level beyond that. And so I'd have to think about it, Mo, but I think that I can't think of someone at the Elite or World Builder level that's not also a player of one or both games. As our Army game right now is about to enter beta playtest. We haven't, it's not out there yet, so it's just a role-playing game in the skirmish game. Are there a couple of folks at the Lore Master level who are there because of the creative process and are not players? There might be. I think Matt might be right about that, but it's a pretty high percentage. Certainly is the answer in terms of player to contributor.
Yeah. Now, as far as the follow-up here, and Brant, to answer your question real quick, we have a much, much larger base of players that are actually involved in the Patreon. Now, the Patreon is rather new. We just started it last June, so we've only been doing it for about a half a year. So that's picking up steam as we go. It's not something that has been around for a while. So our player base is much, much larger. And one of the things that we're doing right now that we're working on is we're working on bringing folks from the player base into the Patreon, getting the word out, trying to make it something that they would like to join up with, to partner with us in. But that doesn't mean that you have to. You can get a rule book and be a Freeblades player and never touch the the stuff on World Anvil. Now, would we prefer that you did? Sure, of course, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a much richer experience. You can immerse yourself in the world on World Anvil. But there's plenty of players out there, and I hear from guys all the time that pop up on Facebook, and I've never met them before. I have no idea who this person is, but they're playing our game, and it's not somebody that I met at a convention, and it's not somebody that I've seen in one of our social media spaces. It's somebody that's picked up the rules, and now all of a sudden they are playing our game, and we think that's awesome. We'd love to expand that as far out as we can.
You were talking before about Tabletop Simulator and how people are using that. How big is the online gaming community for this?
I would say not very. And I think the reason why is because initially, so a lot of this is just it's for the entire industry's faced with it. We're just suffering from the bad timing and horrible nature of COVID. But
sure,
a lot of these initiatives at the end of 2019, we were on fire. We had done things we had never done before. We achieved level of sales we'd never achieved before. Things were going as good as we could imagine them at the time. And then the rug got pulled out from under us because our business practices, business model have us out amongst our players all year long. We're on the road at game days, at game stores, at conventions, most of the year, not even just pure con season, but even the months of, before and after that. And without that, we're not meeting anyone new. And our players are challenged to meet someone new because they're not going to their game store on a weeknight and say, hey, give this game a try. Check this out. So we streamlined our activities for our production because we're taking a big hit in revenue like everybody is. Yeah. And we decided to use the time where we weren't on the road to just crank out as much content as we possibly could. And we advanced the timeline of the whole World Anvil project. But it was launched during COVID. We're not at Gen Con, bringing a cast of thousands into the fold or Adepticon or ReaperCon or any of these other big events where we meet lots and lots of people. Sure. So the numbers are low. We're not going to try to sugarcoat that. They're lower than we want them to be. Everybody's amazing. The total number isn't the best it could possibly be. So, and you can get into the Freeblades game. The rule book, if you didn't take a demo from Requester, the rule book only cost you $10. If you took a demo from Requester, it's free, right?
Oh, wow.
And once you buy it, you never pay for it again. Every 6 months-ish, it's an interactive PDF that you download from the website. All the talents and keywords and, spell lists, et cetera, all hyperlinked to each other. So you have it on your phone or your tablet or your computer, and you can, I'm reading a rule that talks about the talent called Parry. Parry's a blue hyperlink. You click on it, takes you to the rule, which is also helpful when you're at the table, playing the game,
And how big is the rule book? Out of curiosity, what's the page?
Pages?
Yeah.
230 something.
Okay.
I say that because at every 6 months or so, roughly, it really depends. Roughly 6 months. And it will be, I think, in this case, just a little more than 6 months. A new one pops up. And if you have purchased one, you don't buy the new one, you just go and download. Your account auto loads with it, And you will get, for example, if you have the most recent one, 20-2, you'll get 21-1 here not too long from now, only a couple weeks away, really. There's a new faction, new options, 4 new scenarios. I mean, you have the whole core rule book. I mean, in addition to that, but a whole bunch of things get added to it. A new set of gear items you can buy for your characters. All the new models that were made since the last one, and ones that are coming up in the short term after the rule book's published. A new faction that we're bringing out in April. So, and it just happens. You just get it.
All
so
that
you
for $10. You can't beat it.
Right. You cannot. That's right. And you don't have to go and take your hardcover. I'm not picking on anybody in particular, but you don't have to go take your hardcover first edition and throw it away.
Yeah.
So because that's something we just didn't, whether that's a good idea for other people or not, that's up to them. For us, it wasn't a good idea. So you spend your money on the models, right?
Sure.
You don't spend your money on buying a stack of rule books and supplements and things.
So you're saying, to get in on the game, it's the $10 to get the rule book, just for the people who are watching here and checking it out, saying, "Hey, how do I get into it?" So $10 you get this living rule book, and then as far as miniatures, like you have box sets and things like that. I saw two
starter boxes, and the rule book are just under $100.
Wow, that's a good deal.
And that we're going to keep it that way as long as we can.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, have you looked at
now, if you want to go experience Phalon, you don't have to pay any money for that either. The base faction information is free. You don't have to be a Patreon subscriber to get, the details of the country of Haradel. Does it have a king or a caliph? Does it have provinces or what have you? You get the basics of the world just by going into the world of Phalon at the free level. You don't have to pay anything. You want like maps of individual locations. You want NPC stats. You want the campaign details so you can run a campaign. You got to have one of the little bit higher level, subscription levels to get it. But to be familiar with Phalon, you don't have to pay anything.
And Brant's asking here. He says, if I recall correctly, aren't the players in the games this weekend getting a deal on the living rule book?
Yeah, that's the deal that we were just talking about. So if anybody bought a ticket to come and set up and do one of our demos this weekend, they would have got a free living rule book. They'd get a code and they'd go to our website and they'd just buy it basically, and they put the code in at checkout, and that living rule book is free. So they get the rules free for life.
Outstanding. That's a damn good deal, because you get a demo and you get the eternal rule book. That you can't beat that, because like you were saying before, you may get a demo getting version 1, which is good for 1, 2, 3 years or whatever, and then when it's version 2, well, it's kindling.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and we do our best not to change the rules extensively. As long as I've been with the company, the rules have changed very little. We've tweaked some things. We always add things, but as far as overhauling rules,
the last perfect game designer died a long time ago. So anybody who tells you they got it right the first time and never touched it again, they're also a liar. So we can be taught. If we have a rules section and somebody says, "Hey, I don't quite understand this," we will add. We have the design team all has a dashboard we work from. Some player says to us in one of our social media platforms, and we're on them all. We Discord, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is. And they said, "I had a real hard time understanding X," or "This sentence doesn't make any sense to me." That goes on the dashboard, and when we start working on the next version, which will only be a couple of months, we go and we fix that, and it gets made into the text gets turned magenta in the next version. So the first thing we do when we go from 20-2 to 21.1, everything becomes black text because that's the old version now, and then anything we do to it that's different from last time gets highlighted. So as you're flipping through it, you can see where we've changed a word here or improved, given some clarity to a section. You're not reading the rule book and then going to your FAQ. It's already done as part of the text.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense, because that way you can just easily skim through it, look for the changes only once you know the rules.
Yeah,
that's right.
And so we also highlight what's the big things have changed in the first page of the book, to say kind of like these are the big items since the last time. So based on your interests, it might be like, I just want more scenarios. I got the basics, or I want, I want more gear for my characters, then you can see right where that is and go take a link and go right to it first, without having to wait. And now sometimes, there's been 2 or 3 times over the course of the last few years, we've made a mistake, so egregious, in terms of its impact that, oh my God, we don't want that. So we would put out an official change. This is going to get you by until, the next LRB,
Sure.
But those are really, really rare, and rarer as we go. Of course, that would make sense.
Right.
But what Matt was saying is the core mechanic, no change. The way the thing works is the same way it's always worked.
And we got a question up on the screen from the command tent. I'm going to let Matt take that one. It says, I see the rules are for 32 millimeter, but do they also work with 28?
there's no reason why they wouldn't. The Freeblades line of models is in 32 millimeter, and we went that direction because we also our figures are really good for RPG figures as well, and of course we now have the Brightsword RPG. So our figures are in 32. Would the rules work for 28? Yes. There's no reason why they wouldn't.
Okay, good. And when it comes to the game itself, you can actually proxy your own models. Like, say you get the rule book today and you don't have any miniatures just yet, you can use other models in its place because everyone's got probably a bunch of minis that they've gotten from other games. In the interim, obviously you want people to buy your models because it's part of the business model. No pun intended, but the thing is you can always proxy something in. Now, when it comes to the monsters, you were saying earlier on, you guys were talking about how you do have monsters, but they're not like you're not going to run into them all the time. You want them to be special. Talk about some of the monsters, especially everybody wants to know, of course, who's the big bad, and then what is the average, monster you're going to run into? Is it going to be like a goblin or an orc or something like that? Or talk about some of the monsters.
So the monsters, the way that the world works, John mentioned it before, and I think it's one of the coolest things about the world of Phalon. Man is monster enough, right? So most of your run-ins are going to be with humanoids of another faction. Now that we do have a faction of demons that don't operate like your quote unquote common demons. They're from a parallel world rather than from hell or something like that. Things from hell are coming, but they're not demons, right? And that's something that's kind of further out into the storyline.
Do these ones come from Mars?
They do not come from Mars. No, nothing from Mars.
That's for you to find out, sir. So right?
Yeah. So the monsters that you're liable to run into in the world, we have specific scenarios in the book that are monster hunt, and so you have things like a war spider, right, which is your giant spider, and then we also have an Argush, which is kind of a bear badger thing. It's original to Phalon. We have a Vecule as well, which is Bigfoot except really fast and really sharp claws. There's a lot of very original monsters in the game. We also have what we call a Golat, which has a very interesting background that I won't get into here, but is it good? Is it bad? We don't know. It's kind of a really cool enigmatic figure, but a giant, kind of an almost a goblinoid kind of head. Mm-hmm. Then we also have dragons in our world, but they're not like dragons in most other worlds. There are only 9 of them that we know of. They are demons, and each of them is kind of the lord of one of the realms, the demonic realms. So the monsters are there. You do run into them. Obviously, on the small level, the level you're playing Freeblades at, you're just as liable to run into a pack of wolves as you would be to run into one of these monsters.
Okay, and then like you said, the people alone are monster enough, which is pretty interesting. And it sounds like not all, are all of them mercenaries, or just some of the mercenaries, like you were saying, how these free bands work, where you get hired on by a king or whatever, and then you will fight for that person. And do you have any type of game mechanics when you're playing head to head where somehow you can flip the other mercenary by paying them more to come to your side, and basically you win the scenario that way, or you win the battle that way? Although that would be kind of boring, but still, they're mercenaries.
Sure. Well, we do have a scenario, actually. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Well, I don't want to. I know what you're going to say too. Everybody wants to hear your answer too, Matt, because I know it's going to be awesome. But they're mercenary, but they're not mercenaries necessarily the same way I think people commonly interpret that word. They're more like land privateers. So they are warranted to someone, and that contract as a part of the background is pretty strong. If you are a free band that breaks a warrant, violates your warrant, then you are a criminal to everyone, And so it's atypical for a group like this to switch sides in the middle of a battle or do those kinds of things. It's just, it's more like, it's not like you're Blackbeard the pirate. It's you're like that English privateer sent out by the king to go chase the pirate, So you're not a member of their armed forces necessarily, but you've got your letter of marque equivalent and you're out there, playing by the rules, Yeah. There are such things as rogue free bands that don't, exactly play by that same set of rules that are not really, welcome in all spaces. And we're going to explore more of that as we go along, because the balance of the free bands out there now are more of the, rule following kind. And we want to explore more of the not rule following kind. But in that, in a one-on-one game, you're both those kinds of people. There's the bribery talent in the game, so you can do that in the micro level, model to model, not like I'm ending the game by talking all of you into joining me. That's not a thing yet, although that will be more prevalent in the battle game than it will be in where true mercenaries exist, just the highest bidder types. And so that will be a thing that comes down the line. But at the moment, it's more like two competing role-playing parties that are loyal to their patrons. But Matt, you wanted to add something I know is important.
No. Actually, I was probably skittering in and out as I lost my internet connection again. So you did great there, John.
Okay.
Oh, so did you want to add something? Because I was going to ask you real quick. I see the starter sets you were saying under $100 you get, for example, for the people who have not checked out the website that are watching the show here, you can get a starter set for any of the factions at $45 for each one, and then you get the rules themselves for $10. So, like you said, $100 to get started, and there is a lot here. John was asking here. He said, "Oh, there's only 6 figures." I was like, "No, there's way more than that. There's a bunch of factions, and you can look through them. And obviously, the first thing you're going to look at is, hey, what are the cooler miniatures that I really get attached to?" And that's going to be visually the first thing that you're going to want to grab. But obviously, you're going to want to look and understand all the different factions. But the best way to do it for those who are at the Armchair Dragoons digital convention this weekend is to jump in on one of these events that these guys are running, because you're going to explain the game, and at the same time, you're going to end up with a full rule book for free for life. So, including all of the living rulebook editions that come on from here on out. So I think that's a great way for those who are not familiar with this world to come check it out. And hopefully you guys are going to start building more of an online presence as well, and use some of these digital conventions as inspiration because I think this COVID stuff is going to be here for a while, to get some online events going. So that way you can continue not only the world building, but the game playing itself as well.
Right.
And we also, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just going to say, as far as our digital tournaments, our tournament this coming year, we're having one in place of Adepticon, because of course Adepticon has gone away again this year. So we're actually having a digital tournament on TTS like we did last year. We had a North American Championship online. So we do have some guys that are very versed in TTS. It's probably not the go-to of most of our players, just because they're miniature players, but times being what they are, you do what you must, and so a lot of them have developed skills in that area. Sure.
Well, the best part about TTS for everybody that gets into it is you can just jump right into the game. You don't have to worry about getting your starter set in and then washing it, priming it, painting it, and then getting it on the table. You can just jump right in and start playing.
Yeah, so just jump right in.
Enjoy playing it.
Yeah, we've made all the. We have a player who's very Steam and TTS smart. We provided him the assets so that he could set up all the the things that you need to be able to play a game of Freeblades. The icons and the charts and all the imagery to be able to put that together. Our North American Championship last year was going to be 32 people at Adepticon 2020. And of course, that got canceled due to COVID. We had 16 people on a Tabletop Simulator. And a really fun event. It was fun to watch. We ran it here from DGS headquarters and had a ran a podcast out, out of here to kind of track what happened. And we were, one of the cool things is you can be sitting in the comfort of your home, and as long as you're invited in to watch the game, you can sit here and, sharpshoot and kibitz about what kind of moves are being made and, who's doing what to whom. So, and we're still want to have this year's North American Championship be live. So we moved it to later in the year to try to see what would happen with COVID. But we're going to have that, like Matt said, an online event during the weekend of what would have been Adepticon, because players miss it. And it's just a bummer to give them something, Freeblades to enjoyable to do. Give out some prizes, do some other things. We're going to have there's also we have a master crafter contest where we do painting and modeling contest also targeted for that weekend.
Oh, wow.
We can't do live, so we're doing it virtually the same way we did last year. And then the role-playing game also is fairly translatable. In fact, in my opinion, better translatable to a digital experience. And one of the reasons why we picked World Anvil is because it links directly to Foundry Virtual Tabletop, which is a online platform for running role-playing games remotely. For people they're in different places around in the same room together, and we are building our ability to do that, and we will probably keep that post-COVID. As something we definitely want to do, because those people, they're not buying the miniatures in bulk. They might have when they get together and do it 3D and they're in the same room together, they might have their character, but they are coming in from the Lore Master and Bladesworn level of the Patreon. And we want to be able to give them, exciting adventures to play in and inspire other game masters to do certain things.
Well, there's, I see you still have one on the schedule for tonight at 6, and then there's another one tomorrow at 4 p.m. And the one today at 6 is already filled. Matt,
yeah,
go ahead.
That's the one for 6 o'clock tonight is we had to cancel that because without the tickets, we couldn't get our group together. So because we all live in separate corners of the Kansas, Missouri, kind of Kansas City area.
Sure.
We will be available tomorrow at the 3 p.m. to do a demo game. Now, John, I don't want to speak out of turn on that, but
the answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. So
you were gonna ask if we were gonna give the free rulebook code to anybody who was participating in this podcast, weren't you?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to ask, John.
Yes, absolutely yes.
Okay, so let me grab that real quick before we go away, because I do want to get that out to all of you. So
hold on. Do that. I'll tell people how to use it. You go get it and get it to them. Is that okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so Matt's going to provide you with a coupon, what's essentially a coupon code. You're going to go to the website. You have to have an account because the account is what allows you to get the updates, right?
Sure.
So you create an account if you don't already have one on DGSgames.com. And you go and purchase your living rulebook and input the coupon code he's going to give you as part of checkout, and you will not pay your $10 for it. And it will become immediately available as a download in your account. You just go to the downloads tab or button. I'm not looking at it at the moment, but it's a functionality there for downloading your, the stuff that you've been given through the website into your account. And the living rulebook will be the first thing once you purchase it. And this code he's giving you just allows you to get it. You go through the same steps, but allow you to become free because the code will just move the $10 off the top once you've got an LRB in your cart during checkout.
Right. All right. So if everybody's ready, if you've got your pens and pencils or your digital assistant handy, we have QFLRB -HJGX.
Where the hell do those come from?
The boss, sir.
Oh well, yeah, okay. I'll handle the boss. I'm sure that all makes sense to the boss. So we support it. We support it 1,000,000%.
So that, like John said, that's going to get you a free LRB. Guys, enjoy it, peruse it, jump into the community because that's really where it's happening. We have a Discord that you can get into. We have our Facebook page, which is Freeblades Players, which is a fantastic community. I can't say enough about the people that are part of our community. They are absolutely amazing. They are helpful. They are kind. They will just bend over backwards to get you set up. I've been in a lot of toxic game communities, and this is just an amazing experience.
Well, I got to say, from just listening to you guys talk, the passion you guys have for this game and the generosity as well by sending out this coupon code to all of us so we can join in and enjoy this world is fantastic. And I think it speaks volumes to DGS's commitment to this world and commitment to this game and commitment to their fans and customers. And that in turn builds that trust the other way where the customers will continue to support you as well.
Yeah. Do we have time for me to give you just a couple examples of that? Mo, is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Just two quick things. The first thing
Sure.
is nobody has to remember anything particularly. Mo, if you need to hand that code out to, other people, go, oh, I missed it. What do you say? And they get contact you. Just, please feel free to hand that out. I don't know what the expiration date is, but it's not this weekend, so they'll have a few days to make sure they get that. And of course they can contact us if something is a problem. We'll hook them up. We'll square them away. The second thing is that with not having to memorize anything, if you go to dgsgames.com, one of the tabs across the top is social media. So you don't have to remember the names and links and all that to all the different platforms. You go on there, pick the one or ones that you want to interact with, and it's all right there on that page in terms of how to get to each one, how to become a Patreon members on the World of Phalon link or a tab, and then social media has all the others, Instagram and Discord and what have you in terms of Twitter,
Sure.
Ways to interact depending on which way that a person prefers. The other thing I want to say is I want to totally second what Matt said about our player community, including seconding having been part of some toxic game communities in my past, and this is definitely not one of them. And of the thousands of examples I could give you, 2 years ago at Adepticon, the big tournament we have was a 24-person tournament. This is you can experience our games a number of different ways. Competitive is only one of them. It can be cooperative. Freeblades can be played cooperative. It can be played campaign. It can be played multiplayer. But it also be played in a one-on-one tournament setting. This particular event at Adepticon was that. And a player who had never played a game was at the demo table and said, this is really cool. If you got some events this weekend, and Matt, told him we get demo this and campaign event that in this tournament. Oh man, I really wish I could get into that tournament. Well, why don't you? Well, all these players, they've played the game a lot, and I have some noob. Oh no, please come with me. And he took him over and introduced him, not just to anybody that was in the tournament, but some of the most naturally competitive Freeblades players we have, and just took this person under their wing, made him feel like they were absolutely part of the community. While they were playing their first round game, especially, walked them through it, showed them how to play. Didn't just crush them because they were a newbie. And that person is a big time member of our Freeblades community today. That's and that person will tell that story at will about, I've never been in a tournament community where I could walk in as a newbie, have somebody loan me some models and play from game one, off of one demo, and we're pretty proud of that. So that's the kind of community we want to continue to foster.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And the war game community, in all of my experience with it, is very similar to that. Especially when you get somebody who's like, I'm interested, I'm curious, but I don't know what I'm doing. Well, come on over here. I'll sit down and I'll explain to you. And you walk them through it, and you just tell them, hey, listen, they move. Hey, I'm going to do this. It's like you might not want to do that, because if you do, then you're going to open yourself up to
that is so important. Yeah.
That's huge, because then you're building a great rapport with that person, and you're giving a great impression of the game itself and the community right away to that new player. So that person definitely is going to be wanting to buy in and get involved in that. But Matt and John, I really appreciate you taking the time and joining us today and explaining to us all about DGS Games and about Freeblades and the entire world of Phalon. I'm real excited about it myself, and I'm sure everybody that has attended this is as well. So, and again, thank you for that code. That is fantastic, because now we've got the rule book forever of this game, and hopefully we can get more people jumping in and playing it and helping with the world building. Fantastic.
You bet. Tell us how we can do. Yep.
Will do. Thanks a lot, guys. And everybody that tuned in today, really appreciate you joining us as well. And we will be signing off for now, but I've got another one here coming up shortly and at the top of the hour with Bruce Maxwell for the Armchair Dragoons digital convention for the next interview, the designer interview that I've got. But again, thanks to Matt and thanks to John from DGS Games. And thank you all for tuning in tonight. And I will catch you on the next one. Have a great night, everyone.